of a sudden, guns, which was almost impossible to get a few years before, when people were using those guns to fight the police, right? Now, guns are everywhere. Why? Because drugs are everywhere, and they're using it to fight each other. And what style of fighting do they use? Where did that come from? You remember you remember Elliot Ness? Do you remember the Untouchables? Every shooting, not a sniper like white folks do, right? Not walking up to a guy, bam, bam, and walking away. No, absolutely not. Hollywood style. Drive-by shootings, all on TV. They'd come by with Tommy guns, remember that old stuff? Glasses flying everywhere, all the stuff tore up, and they was killing each other like that. That was a style. Nobody else in the world has that style of assassination. So you have the whole community traumatized. You're not walking up to nobody, bam, shooting one person and walking away, right? Uzis was impossible. This is an Israeli weapon. Why is it so easy to get to black people? A long clip, it's a machine gun. You think this stuff was not organized? You think that it just happened? And then the black community, remember some of those scenes. When I came to D.C., it was 450 people. They call it the murder capital of America. They used to have graphs on in the newspaper. Okay, this is June, this is July. It's 250 people been killed already. So at this rate, we will have 475, and they reached those numbers in D.C. At that time, D.C. had almost half a million people. All these big buildings that are here now was not here. D.C. was a calm, old-time southern town. The farther you go back, you'll see D.C. was a sleepy, hollow, old-time southern town. The people were southern, and the environment was southern. Yes, it was. Okay? But they're killing more people in New York. They're killing more people in L.A. In 1980, gang violence in L.A., 400 people dead. A self-genocide, no, suicide, right? Where did we get all of those weapons? It's like somebody got a truckload of weapons and drove them up. You need this stuff, yeah, what you need, right? And then, you need somebody to shoot, that's your home, here's your addresses. Are you a Crip? Well, the blood stay right around the corner. You're a Crip. You're blood. You wear a different color handkerchief than they do. You go over there, right? I was reading the newspaper in the early 70s, and I came back and I heard something I had never heard before. Chitty chitty bang bang, ain't nothing but the Crip thing. And I blew that nigga away, the bars, and you listen to the cell block. I was horrified. I was ready to go back to South America, because remember I turned myself in to help to, I said, man, I want to go home. I want to go back to where I was. I mean, I was listening to that. Imagine you in the cell. I used to ease over next to the Spanish-speaking people. Nobody knew, but they'd be speaking Spanish and, like Mexican. And I would ease over toward them. Because the familiar, I was homesick. I wasn't homesick for America, I was homesick for South America. I was actually home, I loved it down there. And I came back here to help. And I came back here, I didn't know, didn't read the LA Sentinel, I didn't know that in a couple of years, they was murdering murdering each other. How did that happen? Superfly and all that stuff and all this, it's unbelievable. That's what drugs did to us. And so drugs justify the crackdown of the government on us. It opens up the door to illegal search and seizure, stop and frisk, all of that, right? That's what it does. It caused the problem, and then it gives themselves the solution, which is dictatorship, brutality, right? Denial of civil and human rights. Yeah, and give them, we got a right to do this because the neighborhood is savage. Yeah, they did it. They made the problem. And then they have the solution. In fact, that's why we told the people down there the other day, hey man, you don't argue with these people out here. Ain't no sense of you bothering with these people out in the street, right? Because you can't do nothing. Taking off their shirt. I'm still here. You must be crazy. You got to be the police. If you done read any book or done heard, listen to the radio, they didn't talk, or you can see. Here you are, one guy or two or three Negroes, and they're going to throw a bottle at what? You just threw a bottle at the police. Now, we're going to get to this a little later, but you got to remember, the police was there for a reason, and they were structured in a certain way. Just think, when they pull the line back, if here we are speaking, there's a tree, they pull the line back 1 foot away, straight across from us. We'll talk about why in a minute. When we were out there yesterday, an idiot come by on a lawnmower. Why? We're not going to waste our time, but think about it. Do we have the white man on the hook, or do he have us on the hook? Are we fishing him and reeling him, right? Was he waiting for us somewhere over there? And we said, well, let's just go to the Capitol. Did he come over to follow us? Did he follow us, or did we follow him, right? Okay, the police driving by, hey, how you doing? Okay.
No, As-Salamu Alaikum.
Well, that's right. Listen, look. Okay, you got to ask yourself, do we have them on the hook? You know when you get something on the hook, does he have us on the hook, or do we have him on the hook? Right? How much energy how many telephone calls, how much energy are they using on us? And for what reason? We'll get to that later. We'll get back to the target, the poor young blacks. And they had specific targets, Imam Alameen and what have you, and Stokely died, Martin Luther King died, Maxwell Stanford. I saw him 5 years ago over at Howard. He's the only one on this list that's still alive. From Philadelphia, used to be part of RAM. He was talking about vote, get out and vote. I said, good God Almighty. And they were saying, oh, yeah, and he gave his card, Maxwell Stanford. Oh, I didn't even say that. Because we got to get out and vote. I said, good God Almighty. Makes me think, what was the purpose of all that in the first place? Okay, so they exploited the New Left, wrote letters, took ugly pictures of everybody and put the ugliest one in the newspaper, and they caused fitna for everybody. Cartoons, photographs, anything, misinformation. Oh, no meeting tonight, but it is the meeting tonight. Oh, the meeting has been changed from 5th Street to 19th Street. So you go over there, right? And they got all that time and all that money to put out those leaflets about their programs. Infiltration, we know how they did. Psychological warfare, harassment through the legal system, and finally extra legal force. That means killing you. Now, could you turn the air down just a pinch, just for a second? We might need it back on in a minute. But anyway, so here we are. We wanted to be general about, because we talked about this yesterday, but we have a little different approach today. What we're doing is, well, I'll just start by reading from, this letter of introduction to D.C. area churches. I'm going to skip a lot of it. The threats which loom over us today are much greater than ever. We believe that the hope for the future lies in religion. We believe that God has placed us in this position at this time to rescue humanity from humanity. It is clear that the only existing institutions with the capability of taking on such a task are those that are God-centered and mission-oriented. That is, namely, the church and the Masjid. Throughout history, when mankind strayed so far from God, the men of God, such as Moses, Jesus Christ, and Muhammad, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or peace be upon them all, called them to repentance and salvation, that is in Christianity, and witnessing, or shahada, in Islam. Unlike other ideologies and programs which often limit themselves to one sphere of human existence, religious institutions provide all-encompassing program for individual and collective progress and improvement. They are gifted with all the necessary assets to carry out the great mission of saving humanity. This is our letter this decade. This is, I think it's 15 years old, something like that. Okay, now here's what we have. Religion. A belief system, vision, and values which emanate from faith in God, righteousness, goodness, and kindness to neighbors. Through this strong foundation, all of what is good and wholesome for mankind is worked toward, and the boundaries given by God are established. Number two, remember now it has a belief system and values that are tailor-made for what we're talking about. Organizational structure which provide a framework and lays out the process of realizing the high ideals of faith. Structure, a framework. And of course, the dedicated individuals and material resources that can translate great spiritual principles and values into action. Okay, this is not new. We've been having it for 15 years. But now is the time to institute that in a bigger way as possible. That means, for instance, if we want to make this beautiful world, say we want to have a 15 or 20-year period interlude between where we are now and what we need to do, right? Okay. Say after 20 years, we want to make a 10-year, 15-year plan and structure for what we want to do at that time. At the end of 15 years of that period, we start thinking about where we are, what we're doing. What would we like to be like? It's like a global self-management system. Right? Okay. How much technology are we going to use? Are we going to use a space force? What is a doggone space force? This might as well be the Air Force or the Marines in outer space. These dummies are doing just like Christopher Columbus and them did. They had fitna over there. They got on a boat and brought the same rotten. They didn't say, they called it in the book the New World, but it wasn't the old New World. They brought the old world over here and caused, see up here, we just know about the Plains Indians and how they went across and they killed millions of Indians. You don't know South America. They have Pizarro's tomb in Lima, Peru. And Pizarro, since they had gold and stuff, can you imagine the Incas had gold, little trinkets, they're just trinkets, we don't use them for nothing. In Inca history, they say, what did they do? What do they do with this stuff? Do they eat it? They want to know, why are they so obsessed with gold? Because it just happened everywhere. Cortez in Mexico, within a few years, killed 22 million Indians. When they got here, Mexico City had hanging gardens like Babylon. It had 500,000 people. Floating gardens in Mexico City. The idiots, the Americans, I attended the University of Mexico. In Mexico City, it was a group of Americans. I wasn't doing nothing, so I just went over it. So it was a inter-something or type. So the Americans were meeting with Mexicans and everything. And these were generally good Americans. They were down there going to school and everything. So finally the Mexicans got hot and they said, you guys invaded us. You know what the dumb Americans said? We never invaded you. So I got up and walked around the room. From the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli. U.S. Marine song, right? From the halls of, he said, we did. He said, that's right, 1847, you snatched the Holy Mean. You ain't invaded nobody. The Treaty of Guadalupe, you know what I mean? They didn't even, they had breezed across it in history. They knew that the whole West, they probably half of us in California, they knew that, you know what I mean? But it wasn't in the front of their mind. The Plains Indians, down there they had higher civilization. You see those great tombs and great pyramid structures you find down there? Guess what? The great structures in Peru and the great structures in Mexico and the great structures in Egypt, right? The great pyramids. All of them are lined up in some galactical, they're all lined up, zoop, zoop, zoop. Not a white man, Van Daniken, I don't want to stray from what I'm talking about, but Van Daniken, Chariot of the Gods, I don't know if you've ever heard of it. He comes up with this theory that white people came from outer space. Right? You ever hear that? Yeah. Van Daniken, long time ago, and he interprets all the writings on the caves like some guys looked like a rope tied to him and a bubble on his head. He says that's a space. Because those are people of color, ain't no way in the world they could have built all of that stuff lined up with these great galaxies. They couldn't have did it if white folks did it. White supremacy. White supremacy, the chariot of the gods. And that was in the 70s, late 60s, 70s. He come out with that stuff. It's a book, The Charity of God. They had not a movie, but a documentary. Insanity. But we can't do that. These are people of color. They can't do that. How could they pull that off? How could everything be lined up? Because we didn't find this out till last month. You know what I mean? So how could they have done it hundreds and thousands of years ago? With the Egyptians, thousands of years ago. How could all of their stuff be lined up with all of that stuff and we didn't know about it? Something wrong. We're going to get into that in a minute. White supremacy is serious, okay? And of course, dedicated individuals and material resources that can translate great spiritual principles and values in action. That's what we're up to right now. This same stuff we've been had out for years, and this is what we're headed toward during this period. I'll just read a little bit of this. Just as the Civil Rights era, when the church became the foremost vehicle for achieving our goals and dreams, i.e. Dr. King, so today the religious establishment must reach back to its original mission, inherited from the prophets, and make this earth a place worth living in. Our hopes, I just heard this morning in Siberia.
100 degrees.
100 degrees? What? You know Siberia, I don't know if you know what Siberia was.
Yeah.
When the Russians wanted to send you into exile, where you would freeze to death, the day you get there, you'd freeze to death. It was Siberia. They sent the Muslims from a warmer part of the Soviet Union in those days to Siberia. 100 degrees, something, look, okay. Forget about Greenland or wherever it was last year. The average temperature was 68 degrees. That's hot over a long period of time. Okay, over a long period. Our hopes and dreams and aspirations are very close to yours. Over the years, we have had the opportunity to represent Islam in speeches. Okay, now I'll get to what we want to do. And first, we thank Allah we're grateful for this opportunity to play a historical part in this, and we will try to explain as we go along a little bit. I would say to play a historical